Good morning, everyone. Welcome back for our weekend update. This is Nathaniel here with you, just catching you guys up on what all happened this weekend. So first, I apologize. I'm a little late on the post. I've been trying to do the evenings, Monday evening, but just based on our meeting last night and when we got back, and actually when I woke up in the morning, I was just too beat, pretty tired. So I decided to postpone it to the morning. So I do apologize for those that might have been looking for that last night, because that's when I normally do it. But in light of that, we're going to get going here. There was a lot happened this weekend. Let's see, so the last time that we talked, it was Friday. So let's just jump right into Saturday. Saturday, just like the last update I made, I really just tried to step out and do a lot of job searches. So that was the main thing I was doing. I was stepping out, just going to different stores, like store after store after store. And then I actually got a call pretty early in the morning from one of the places I applied on Friday. Actually, I think I got that wrong. I think they called me Friday and set up the appointment on Saturday. So it was a long time ago. Not really, but I had an interview at 11 o'clock at Capriati's Sandwich Shop, a local chain up here in a budding chain up here in Chicago. They have some places, other places, but not here in Chicago. So I went there, got about 10 minutes early. I went there at 11, well, 10:50, but and had an interview, and the interview went really well. The guy was very nice. They were very relaxed, and they really focused on just like anyone that they'd be hiring. They went around well-rounded people. They didn't so much spot hire. They hired people to be able to do every position. So that was a upside, because coming from noodles, I had learned every position, and they're very similar. Even though sandwiches, the process, there's like the processes behind it, like the assembly line atmosphere kind of was very similar, and so I was able to fit right in with that. So he told me that he'd call me back Monday with the offer, with how many hours he could give me, and all that other information, such as like time I could start, all that stuff. So that's what happened on Saturday, which was pretty cool. So I felt like he's all right. Like, he didn't, like, obviously, like, I wasn't officially offered the job, but it definitely seemed that way. So it was very positive to be on. So that was my morning. And then after that, in the afternoon, my discipler, Kyle and I, after I did some stuff for lunch and went to coffee to do some quiet time with the Lord, my disciple and I, he was like, "Oh, hey, you want to go sharing?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, for sure, man. Let's go to one of the parks." And so we were headed our way to Grant Park, and then there weren't that many people there, so we were like, "Let's go to Millennium Park." So we're walking away, keep going, and then it just starts to sprinkle. And we're like, "All right, like, hopefully it doesn't start raining." It wasn't supposed to like pour till 8 o'clock, and so we're like, "Okay, like we're good." And then it started coming down a little harder. And next thing you know, it's like, all right, we gotta get inside somewhere, because it was very, very raining, very heavy. And we both thought, it's like, we had both made the conscious decision not to bring, like, he had a raincoat that he usually wears, and I have an umbrella. And it's like, I looked at the weather, and there was no chance of rain until 8 o'clock. And so it's like, I didn't even think about it. So we ended up going to Starbucks, and we're like, well, let's just chill in here. And then we actually tried to look around Starbucks to see if there's anyone we could initiate with and share with. That didn't pan out, but after a while, it was just coming down. Just like, all right, let's just try and make our way back. So it slowed down for a little bit, and we were going. We're like, I think we can make it if it slows down long enough. So we walked, and then it came down like a torrential downpour, and it was sunny too. So it was like a sun rain, and it was just beaten down. But luckily, we were behind the corner. I don't think I have anything to use as an example. Like, here's the building. This is where Kyle and I are standing, and like this is a street. So this is the side of the building. The rain is going, like, blowing this direction, like toward. If it was on the camera, it'd be towards you guys, and it was this way. And Kyle and I were standing right here as this torrential downpour came down. but the building behind us, right, this one, shielded us from the rain. So we actually didn't get rained on, like, at all. It was, even though it was pouring, like, we were watching, like, there's this dry patch around this building because the wind was pushing it that direction. And so we didn't get wet. And it was going on for like 5-10 minutes. We're like, I'm not stepping out. Like, we're staying dry. We might, like, let's try and wait it out or something. So eventually we're like, oh, let's get an Uber, because it just did not seem to pan out. It was like it was raining. Like, people aren't going to be at the park. So it's probably just not going to pan out very well. So we called an Uber, and then as soon as we ordered the Uber, of course, it slows down. And we're like, should we cancel it? Should we cancel it? And it came to the point where we're like, let's just cancel it. Let's just go for it. So we just stepped out, and it was just very, very sprinkling at that time, and we were good the rest of the way. But on our way back, we decided to stop by a couple coffee shops and initiate there, and we actually had 3 really great conversations with people. So that was really cool. That was very exciting to see that even people that are just here, residents of Chicago, were willing to talk with us. We did perspective cards, which are a breakdown of 5 questions of your worldview, of who do you think God is, what do you think the purpose of life is, what is human nature, who Jesus was or is, and where do you find what is the source for your spiritual truth? Where are you getting, what are you drawing on to answer those previous questions? And then there's different, each question has 5 or 6 cards that have typical definitions of God, typical meaning and purposes of life that people define, and so on and so forth. And then after they share, we try to say hey, if you don't mind, ever sharing, would you let us or would you mind us going through our perspective, how we view the world and how we view things. And that's so in that follow-up is how we can get the gospel presentation in, and hopefully a deeper conversation. So the first gentleman was very nice. He was willing to go through the perspective cards with us and let us do our perspective. After that, though, that was always good for, and that's okay. He was very graciously and he was very gracious and very kind in the way he's like, hey, I just gotta get some work done. So he was very kind. Sometimes he just gets people that shut you down, which is in their right. That's in their right. They're allowed to do that. But he was very kind in letting us hear his perspective and letting us share ours. But then right after that, we got to share with 2 guys that were both interning here in the city. And so we were sharing with them and got to go through their perspectives, and kind of had a duality of both perspectives going at the same time. Some of their ideas lined up, some didn't. So that was a unique happening, just so that they both saw each other's perspectives as well as their own, because they knew each other. And then based on time and what they were doing, we couldn't continue, but we set up a follow appointment. So this week, I believe Wednesday or Friday, depending on availability of them, we'll be able to go and get coffee with them again and hopefully continue our conversation we were having. And they were very nice guys. They were very open with discussion. And it was really cool to see them interested or willing to meet up with us again, 2 strangers they met. We described who I were, but still we were 2 strangers that they had met in a coffee shop on a random Saturday, and they were willing to meet up again. So that was really encouraging, actually. Really cool to see. So that was the main things or main happenings on Saturday. And then let's move on to Sunday. Sunday. Oh, let me grab my notebook here. Took some notes. Almost knocked over my leg. Sunday we had church in the morning, per usual, and oh goodness, that was loud. Which was really good. We continued our discussion. Well, I guess the church continued their focus on prayer and breakthrough prayer, and which was nice. And he was just going through just like the idea of like prayer and worship, which was very interesting. He used Leviticus 9 as a reference, going through kind of what God was telling the people to do in order for His glory to be seen among them, which was really cool just to see like this is an example of how it was, or how like worship, like what it looked like in the Old Testament, and like how we can draw on that to influence our own worship in some ways, which was really cool. Yeah, that was very interesting, and definitely sparked a lot of conversation between my roommates and I later that day. We were talking about the difference. One thing they said is like the idea of like worshiping sacrificially, and like the seemingly dichotomy of like, well, Jesus' sacrifice paid in blood, one for all, for everything, like past, present, future. Like He has paid, the sacrifice has been paid. So then what does it mean to worship sacrificially? And we really just, we talked about it for a while, and like one thing that we were coming up with is like, at the very least, like to worship sacrificially is to lay aside pride in our dignity, that so much can blind us, and just to humble ourselves, not by our own power but by God's power, to step before Him in worship. And that was definitely quite the conversation between us. We were all just like trying to figure out different ways, like suggesting different things that we're like, no, I don't think that's right, like that doesn't make sense, like, and just kept going and kept going until we at least got to that bare minimum. So that was pretty cool, just to think of like, well, what if we would step into worship very humbly every time, and consciously make that decision, consciously make that choice, to set aside like our pride, and say like, no, like this is to worship God in all His glory. Which was really cool just to discuss with my roommates about. So we had a good time discussing that. And then the rest of that day, there wasn't a whole lot going on. I stayed in the Word in the afternoon. I was going through our Colossians study, trying to do some of the workbook that we had. And then in the evening, we had a community building event, and it was a scavenger hunt. Now this thing was fun, I'm not gonna lie, it was a lot of fun. So what happened was, like, there was a designated area on Navy Pier, and we had a map that like showed the areas that were like inbounds, and the goal of the staff is to hide on Navy Pier, and they can do that in a variety of ways. They can just like be in a kind of secluded area, or they can dress up and like look not like themselves. Like a couple of the staff guys with beards, they shaved their beard for it, and it's like, man, I don't know if I can end up doing that. Like, would I be that dedicated to a scavenger hunt to shave my beard? But they did, and one of my roommates looked right in the eyes of the staff guy. Like, he knew him. The staff was from his campus at Bradley. Like, they'd known each other for a couple of years or more at this time, and he's seen him with his beard shaved. He looked him right in the eye and just did not recognize him at all. So the staff is there, and they're like sitting around or hiding around Navy Pier, and then we get there and we have to try and find them. And so the way you like find someone is like not just like seeing them, but it's, you have to approach the person and say, if a dog chews shoes, which shoes does he choose? Yeah, tongue twister in and of itself. And so you say that statement to the person that you think is staff, and then they respond with, they all had their own phrases that they had made, and we write down the phrase, and that proves that like we found them and like talked to them. But the risk is, you don't, like, they went all out in their disguises. You don't know if the person you're approaching is staff or not, because some people were like completely altered. Like, they just did not look like themselves. Like, they went, and some of them had wigs, some of them had like were like as I said, clean shaven. Some just like looked ridiculous, and it was hard. Uh, there was a moment where I almost approached a person, and so did another person from another team, and like we both were like walking by, and like I saw the person's face as the person on the other team was about to say something, and like I noticed that like this is not a staff person. Like, no, this is not a staff person. This isn't. And I was like, don't go, don't do it. Like, I didn't say anything, but like as I was walking by, they like glanced my direction. I was like, and luckily we didn't approach the person because he was not a staff member. Oh goodness, reality. Oh, man. But that was a whole lot of fun. We ended up, my team and I, my group of four, we ended up placing no, not fourth. My group of four ended up placing second in that. So we were so close. They beat us by one more staff person. But it was still a lot of fun. And it definitely was a hoot. Afterwards, just like seeing the staff that you didn't find, it's like, I looked right at you, but I didn't approach you because I didn't think you were. Oh man, like it was just a lot of fun, and built some great community and some good memories. And then moving on to Monday, I woke up super early. Not because necessarily I wanted to. I was just like I guess I was nervous for the interview at Quarter Bakery. But I got there at 7. On the dot. Was the train took a little bit longer than I wanted to. Otherwise, I've been a few minutes early. But I got there on the dot, and initially I was kind of nervous because the manager there was like, "Oh, wait, like who are you? Like, what are you coming here for?" It's like I was told like there was an interview at 7 a.m. and I was like, oh, in the back of my mind, I was like, "Oh, did they mean 7 p.m.? Like, oh no." But he figured it out, and he wasn't able to pull my file at the time, which again like worried me, but he sat down with me anyway and had an interview, and at the end of it he was like, all right, here's the offer. I'm going to email this offer to you once I have your name so I can pull your file, your online application. Once I get that, I'll shoot the email out to you later today. All you got to do is accept it, and then we'll be on track, and I can start working as early as Thursday. So I now have a job. The job search is finally over, and that was awesome. He was able to give me a decent amount of hours because of just circumstances with some people on vacation and various things. So I'm able to fill in for that, which is really cool, and just kind of stepping forth from there, which is going to be a lot of fun. Get some early morning hours, which is going to be hard but good. So that was my morning, and I came back and I slept because I woke up at like 4:30, not because I wanted to, but because I think I was just super nervous for this interview and was like, I gotta get there, I gotta make sure I get there on time, and just I woke up way too early. So I took a nap, woke up pretty refreshed, and then we had our our group meeting of staff and students, and one of my roommates, James, and I actually went a little earlier because they needed some drummers for the worship band. So we divided that up. We figured out that I would be helping out with the acoustic sets on the cajon, which is, of those of you who don't know, it's like a wooden box that when you hit it, it's like hollow in certain parts, very hollow, so you can get a good sound out of it, and it gets a good bassy sound. And then on the corners of the box, like 2-inch by 2-inch section, if you hit there, it sounds like a snare drum. Now on a very smaller scale, obviously, and you're not hitting it with a stick, so it's not as prominent, but you get that snary sound, which is cool. So the next acoustic set, I'll be helping out with that. But then we had our breakthrough, keep saying breakthrough, our group meeting, and talked about magnificent identity, and our identity in Christ. And so we referenced Psalm 139 for that, which was really just in itself a very beautiful psalm, just a psalm of David just admitting like how well the Lord knows us, and how much thought He has put into each of us. And it's like Christ, and like Christ is enough. Like He's worthy. He's worthy of our trust. He's worthy of our praise. Like the God of all creation, like we abide in that, and that was just very encouraging. It was very encouraging talk about magnificent identity and finding our identity in Christ, and that's just really what we focused on the rest of the night. We actually did an activity later that was showing like different things that we find our identity in, answering different questions, and we had signs around the room that like if that category applied to you. Like one of the questions is like what do you find the most joy in, and so then you go to one that's like family. They were like the typical like breakdown of like different things in our lives, like family, friends, health, education. Well, for us, education, because we're college students, education, work / major. They broadened the definition a little bit because not very many of us have like jobs yet, like real like official jobs. Work, gender, race, socioeconomic class. I think a couple more I can't remember off the top of my head. And so like, what do you find the most joy in your life? And so then you would go standard of S sign, and you were able to see alongside with you like those that like agreed with you, like, oh yeah, like this is something for this reason that is like most joyful. But you also got to see that people have like different things that like bring them joy in their life, and like that are larger influences in their life. Like one thing that might be like number one for me, like this is number one, and this is something that I don't think about, is flip for someone. Like their number one is like, oh, I don't think about that very often, but then their bottom one is something that like, I think about very often. It's like you get so many cool perspectives, and it was a really cool activity to end the night with. But because of that, it also took a lot longer, and we got back a lot later. So with waking up really early and coming back really late, I was just really tired. But getting back at it today, and we'll be starting on this Tuesday on getting my job stuff done. Got to fill out some forms and get that done. So hopefully I can start on Thursday. So thanks for bearing with me, guys, and thanks for listening to the weekly update, which is the weekend update. I'll be looking for a video on Wednesday to update again on what happens this next couple days as I step into work and I step onto campus again on Wednesday. And also be looking for maybe a little change on the website. I'm going to be adding probably a differentiation in sections. One that is going to be my update and blog of Chicago Summer Mission, just you and me talking like we are right now. And the other is going to be like where the Meet My Roommates video is, and I'm going to separate those two so you can see both of them, and those other videos don't get buried as I continue posting on my blog of just me. So, and I hope to add to that as well other people here on the mission that that would like to share their stories, their testimonies, and just share their lives with you guys. And so hopefully this week I'll be able to get a couple of videos of those up there. So be looking for that, and see you guys Wednesday. All right, you have a wonderful day. Bye.